mayores, soluciones de vigilancia administradas por video, monitoreo de alarma las 24 horas al día, 7 días a la semana y seguridad de personas. Alert 360 es su solución ideal. Además, Alert 360 tiene integraciones inteligentes para el hogar y el negocio, para una total tranquilidad, protegiendo lo más importante y reduciendo los costos de energía con nuestras funciones de programación automática de primera línea. Alert 360 ofrece descuentos en servicios de seguridad a personal militar, veteranos, primeros respondientes, educadores y personal hospitalario. No seas víctima, da un paso fuerte hoy. Llame a Rosana Torres al 832-863-8574 para su consulta gratuita.
Broadcasting live from Houston, from the space city to the world, you are watching Now Media Television.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Your Personal Real Estate. I'm your host, Michelle Briggs. Now to start today, did you know, looking at the moderate scenario, The Real Deal wrote an 88-page report titled Empty Spaces in Hybrid Places that projects office values will decline by 26% from 2019 to 2030, now which would mean a loss of $800 billion in value. Like, how many people do you know that prefer to go into the office a few times a week or not at all? Now, the rise of hybrid offices continues to and is reshaping the corporate landscape of response to the evolving work dynamics. This transformative shift is sending ripples through the commercial leasing industry, prompting both landlords and tenants to reevaluate their strategies and priorities. The concept of hybrid office is recollaborating the very essence of our office space demand. With an increased number of companies increasingly adopting hybrid work models, the need for traditional office space is undergoing a dramatic transformation. As employees split their time between home and the office, the requirement for constant physical presence dwindles. Thus, businesses are seeking streamlined, versatile spaces that cater to focused work and collaborative efforts when needed. Now, the impact does not stop at demand. It also extends to the very design of office spaces. Flexibility is the name of the game. As companies pivot toward a hybrid work model, the design of office spaces must accommodate this dynamic shift. I mean, office layouts now need to offer medley of spaces that cater to diverse activities, including focused work, brainstorming sessions, and casual interactions. I mean, moreover, the technology infrastructures of these spaces need a makeover. Now, fast internet connectivity, seamless video conferencing capabilities, and other remote work supporting technologies are no longer just perks. They are essential components of modern office design. Now, as demand for traditional office space wanes, so does its pricing power. Companies requiring smaller spaces can wield negotiating leverage, resulting in more favorable rental terms. Yet the evolution of office design to align with hybrid work comes at a cost. Investing in flexible furniture and advanced technologies adds a new layer to the expense equation. Now, the rise of hybrid offices has paved the way for fresh concept in office space design. Co-working hubs and flexible office solutions are gaining momentum, providing an array of amenities that seamlessly blend with hybrid work dynamics. Now, while the full extent of hybrid offices influences on the commercial leasing industry is still unfolding, the hybrid office revolution has continued to ignite a profound shift in the commercial leasing realm. It is more than a trend, it is a transformative force that is reshaping office demand, design, and dynamics. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
República H, con Sofía García. Una república que necesita saber cuál es el camino correcto. En República H te diremos qué pasa en cada rincón del país. ¿Qué pasa en tu estado? ¿Qué hace tu gobernador, presidente municipal o alcalde en materia de seguridad, salud, desarrollo, economía o servicios básicos para atender a su población? Tenemos desplegados más de 70 corresponsales en todo el país y más allá de las fronteras. República H, de lunes a viernes a las 8 de la noche por Heraldo Televisión.
Palitos y Bolitas es la catedral de la explicación. Este programa es la única parada que necesitas para entender los porqués y cómo de todo lo que pasa en México y el mundo. Lunes a viernes, 7 p.m. por Heraldo Televisión.
Welcome back, everyone, to Your Personal Real Estate. Now, we're continuing our show today, and we're talking to Jennifer Green again. Now, she was with us last week, and she's talking about rehabbing properties and her business. I mean, they have 5 properties going right now. So how are you doing today, Jennifer?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. It's great to see you. Now, last week we talked about rehab and budgeting and things like that, but today I was thinking we should probably deep dive into what it really looks like. Now, you have the house. Now, you've bid on the house, you've got it, you've closed. What are the first steps? No kidding. If somebody was brand new saying, what do I do now? Talk about what that looks like for someone.
Yeah, I think even before you close, during that prep time from when you've gotten the house under contract to when you close, I actually think is sometimes even more important than when you're actually doing the rehab itself. The prep can really set you up for success. So you're going to want to get your clean out crews in there who are going to determine what your price is. You're going to want to get your scope of work really dialed in, everything down to how many nails you're going to need and doorknobs. I mean, it really has to get that focused. You have your GC in there, whomever it is that you're using. You have a project manager if you're using someone. Now, again, I've been doing this a long time, so we have all these pieces in place. And I have a specific project manager who does this work. But when I started out, it was me doing it, you know, and it's very intimidating, especially not to bring gender into it, but sometimes being a female in the construction field, you can sort of get stepped on sometimes, you know, and not know what you're doing. And so I really had to learn all of these pieces of the puzzle in order for me to sound like I knew what I was talking about. I mean, that's really what it came down to. And so really making sure that you're setting yourself up for success as you go through is first and foremost, like the most important thing that you can do of having that plan. Now, is it going to go to plan? No, it never, ever does. I mean, nothing ever goes perfectly. And so you kind of have to prepare for those pitfalls too. And, you know, last time we talked about having that contingency budget set, and that's really for the uh-oh or the oops that you didn't see or you didn't know, especially if you start opening up walls in some older homes. There's a lot of weird behind those walls, and you really have to prepare yourself for that stuff. And that also comes with experience. So that part, right, of having that piece of the puzzle in the beginning and setting yourself up for success is important. So usually then, once I close, I mean, I call my cleanup guy and they go in there pretty much immediately as soon as I have the keys. I mean, they are in there cleaning stuff out as quickly as we can. And we're the people that will take whatever is there, like I said, and get rid of it in whatever way, responsible way that we can. Once they go through it, then, you know, we've got our GC coming in and planning all that stuff out. Plus, the orders are starting to happen already. I mean, even before we know, you know, sometimes even before a hammer hits, you know, the wall, we've got stuff ordered already because we know that we have to get that stuff done in order for us to hit a timeline. So like I said, that prep part in the beginning, I can't tell you how important that part is before, you know, you get contract to closing.
Well, I can only imagine when you are stepping into, newly into this, into rehabbing and having that padded, if you know, pad or extra money for just in cases and if something goes wrong, that you have that. I mean, just the mere fact of understanding what does it take or, you know, what's missing, what's needed inside of electrical and plumbing and your AC and, you know, there's so much to that. How long did it take you to feel really comfortable with having those conversations?
I'd say probably after my somewhere between my 5th and 8th house or so, then I really felt comfortable. I mean, you have to remember that, I'm going to see, hundreds of houses a year, just be walking in and out and just doing rehab estimates and all that kind of stuff. And obviously, a handful of those end up becoming our flips. But the thing is that I just learned and paid attention. And honestly, a really good contractor that I just ask a lot of questions. I always ask a lot of questions. I still continue to ask questions. There's always more to learn, especially too as building codes change and electrical and plumbing and HVAC and all of those things are constantly changing. And so then knowing how to amend your budget to that is going to be extremely important. Like for us, we had a whole new electrical code that came down here July 1st. And it was like, okay, we pretty much know now that we have to almost double our electrical in order to hit code. And so that's something I also think that a lot of homeowners don't understand. And we're pretty transparent about our numbers with everybody because the fact of the matter is like X, Y, and Z has to be done in this house. And, in order for us to do that, we have to make sure that we're hitting all the codes in the right way.
Right. Now, with the rehabs, how long is your average turn time, or how long does it take you to flip or rehab a home?
So normally, a lot of things that we do is, we touch every surface, do a lot of cosmetic repairs, and kind of our bread and butter is, doing cosmetics, bathrooms, kitchens, flooring, paint, all that stuff on the main floor. And in Minnesota, we have basements. And so it's a big thing to add square footage in the basement. So usually we're adding a bedroom and a bathroom and then like a living space. And so for us, usually that's about a $90,000 job or so. And so that for us takes about anywhere from 7 to 9 weeks. I usually like to stay on $10,000 a week of work being finished. And that's kind of what we go by as 10 grand a week. If we don't hit it, why didn't we hit it? What are we behind on? What could we make up for? And so it's a constant checking in of how we're doing on the project. Do you have a Gantt chart? A lot of the times that we're going week by week by week, this is what's going to be done each week. If it's not done, where did we mess up? Where can we make up for it later? Just to make sure that we're on schedule.
Exactly. Now, I wanted to ask that because there is, I've had friends that got into the industry and one home took 6 months, and it can be detrimental to a pocketbook, right, to a business budget. So I was curious for that. Like, so you got 5 going. There's a lot going on with you. Now, you talked about when you first get the home, you're in there, you're cleaning. Let's go back to what's the next step after you've got your keys, your crew has gone in and counted the nails and the light sockets and the doorknobs. What's next?
Well, that's typically when the trades are really going to come in the beginning. You're going to, have to do your rough-ins for plumbing, electrical, HVAC, all of the preparatory work, needs to be done behind those, the studs. So everything behind the walls is pretty much going to get done first. And everyone's like, oh, I just want to see the end result. Well, the end result doesn't happen until you do all of the hard stuff in the beginning. I mean, roofing, we're doing right away. If we have to do siding. Now, again, with us being in Minnesota, we have to be very cognizant of the time of year when we purchase properties. Because I'll tell you right now, we're not going to be doing siding in the middle of January. It's not going to happen. And so we really have to kind of plan accordingly. And so now when we're buying these houses in the fall, it's like, let's think about that timing, right? And get the siding, the roofing. We don't necessarily have to do windows, but like that type of stuff. So sometimes our schedule can be a little bit backwards compared to other people who can work 365 days a year, in the temperature that they're in. But for us, that's typically what we do is try to do that outside stuff first, especially if we're, buying in the fall/winter time. And then sometimes in the spring, then we have to finish up. But like, again, that first part, it's all the prep work behind the walls, right, that we have to get done first.
And it makes sense because especially the location where you are, that you want to make sure that your tradesmen, they're coming in and the interior can be completed while it's still snowing or whatever the weather condition is. So I completely agree with that. Now, after when the trades start coming in, one of the interesting I hear conflicting is when the flooring goes in. Now, I've heard some people say you put that in first, which I don't agree with that. However, we have others that say you put that in last. When do you put your flooring in?
We're usually putting it in probably the last quarter of the rehab. And the reason I say that is, sure, you can put, coverings over the floor, but what if someone drops something, or what if something rips back? And you know what I mean? There's just way too many things that can happen. It's the same thing with paint. I know a lot of people that go in and do paint first, which I don't do, but some people do paint and then they have to go back in and do touch-ups again later. And I'm like, I feel like that's kind of double duty. And so making sure that all the pretty stuff, you know, is kind of done at the end. Obviously cabinets and things like that have to go in, and that can mess with your flooring timeline also too if you're doing completely new flooring, you know, in a kitchen, depending on how you set your cabinets. But like some of those things, like all of those things have to go in order, like you were saying. I mean, I for one, like I said, flooring, I wait. Like that's one of the last things. Same thing with carpet. A lot of the times we try to do carpet as the very last thing, because if people are painting, and I don't care how much you know, plastic you have over stuff, sometimes people don't take care of it, and then you have, you know, paint all over your carpet, and then you kind of have to redo it. And that's just an added.
I have seen that before, and it's super frustrating because it does. Paint does not come out of a carpet easily. So what is, just curious, what is the paint color that you use in the homes? Are you primarily a white wall or a gray color? What's your colors right now?
We kind of do like a grayish, so it's a mix between a gray and beige. I know grays, like beige is coming back, but gray is still there. So like I said, we do grayish, right? We pretty much do that on every surface, minus our bathrooms. We do like a lighter, like bluish color in our bathrooms just to give a little bit of a difference. But that's pretty much in every house that we do, usually no matter the price point, just because you want to have more of a blank palette in the background so that people can, you know, dress it up the way that they want to. And it's just the muted colors just make people also feel comfortable when they walk into the house.
That is true. A neutral palette. And yes, that gray and beige coming back. I don't know if I'm a fan of the beige, but the gray and the beige that's merging. I think Sherwin-Williams has this gray mist. It's like the hot color down here is the gray mist. So I totally understand that. So what about the landscaping? We haven't even talked about the exterior of the home.
Yeah. Landscaping, I usually wait till the very, very end, because the more fresh, you know, your landscaping is, like even while we're you know, we have cleaning come in, you know, to clean the home. We do stage pictures, all that kind of stuff. They're coming in literally right before that at the very end. I have my landscaper who comes in usually about a week or two when they're out from construction. Then once they're done, like I said, then they come in at the very, very end. Because again, for pictures, you want it to look nice, especially too when you start, you know, list the property, you want it to be all fresh and new, and no weeds are coming in, right? And so that's like very, very end. All the very, very pretty stuff and finished work is that last 2 weeks, you know, and then you got your punch list, you do the little minute things, and then that's really kind of the end of it, is landscaping.
Excellent. Well, Jennifer, thank you again for being with us today. We look forward to additional segments and learning more about the rehab and project management and all that great stuff. So thank you again.
Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
And we'll be right back after this commercial break.
The best bilingual news, business talk, and technology content 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You are watching Now Media Television, the first bilingual media network in the United States.
El tema está en los países. Liderazgo y experiencia. Nuestro país debe meterse en las grandes discusiones y en los grandes debates. Son parte de una carrera exitosa. Se juegan dos estados. Él es referente en el periodismo. No definen el 2024. Javier Solórzano te espera cada noche para llevarte las noticias, el análisis y las entrevistas más importantes de lo que sucede día a día en el país. Este es el referente de la noche.
Welcome back, everyone, to Your Personal Real Estate. We were having a great time today. Okay, we are continuing our show with Ann Tran. You've seen Ann Tran before. We have her back with us today. She's a loan originator with Envoy Mortgage. How are you doing today, Ann?
I'm doing good. Thanks for asking. It's good to be back.
I know. I love having you here. Okay, so today we've talked about first-time home buyers. We've talked about several things, but today we're going to deep dive into really what it looks like when you're having and hosting the first-time home buyer program. So many of you, if you do not know, Ann does love education. I know you'll have an opportunity to talk about that, but she loves the education and sharing with others what it looks like to buy a home and get a loan, right? So when's a good time to buy, Ann?
Well, thanks for all of that. Yes, I do conduct first-time home buyers seminars, and I really wanted to kind of make it clear about the simple things, the first steps that involved in getting a mortgage started and the home buying process and the mentality behind it. So when's a good time to buy? When you're ready, when the finances work. Do not wait for the interest rate to go down to buy. If the circumstances are right for you to start moving out, your income supports this decision, then I highly recommend to start making those moves by reaching out to your mortgage loan officer or a loan officer and start that mortgage process and getting that application completed.
Yeah, because we've talked about before, with your credit scores and the steps to take, but really I agree with you when it comes to when you're ready to buy a home or when a good time to buy a home is, every realtor is going to tell you, get it today. We have the little quote that, marry the house, date the rate. Yes. You can refinance later. There's different things that we can do or you can do as a loan originator for someone, but really looking at your budget, exactly when the best time is for you. Think about, it's generational wealth. You're building equity. Sometimes your mortgage payment is going to be, most of the time, if not all, your mortgage payment is going to be less than a rental payment. But sometimes, like the median price home right now in the Houston market, first-time home buyers are priced out. So when you're ready, right?
Yeah, but also, there was something I was going to say and lost my train of thought. But
it's okay. Literally, there's so much to buying a home. There really is.
There's so much. Oh, what I wanted to say was, don't wait. Don't make these decisions on your own. Reach out to a loan officer or a mortgage loan originator like myself, or even your realtor friend and talk about this out loud. Talk about it with somebody who knows how to handle that information and be able to put it in the right spots to make a plan for you, to see what the options are for you out there, because it's just not always a black and white scenario for you. There can be multiple strategies that work for you. So you don't always have to put 20% down. You can put 3% down. When it comes to your interest rate, there are strategies and plans that involve buying down your interest rate or refinancing down the road. So there's a lot of options, but you should talk to your mortgage loan officer. Do not make these decisions by yourself because there's a lot more involved.
Exactly. Go to one of our home buying programs. So how do you know, or how will I know when I'm ready?
Well, income. So if your income supporting this new increase in housing payment, that's one indicator. Your credit score would be another one. So if your credit score is in the high 600s, 700s, that's a good starting point. If it's if it's lower, that shouldn't be a deterrent. Definitely reach out to your mortgage loan originator, loan officer, bank officer, whatever, and talk to them. Find out where you're at, what you need to get fixed. If there's something that's on your credit report that we need to eliminate in order to increase your credit score to get you better terms and rates. So that's one indicator. Job employment. So if you are you just start a new job, maybe that's just not the right time to look for a place. But if you've been at your job for maybe a year, year and a half, 2 years, most lenders are looking for 2 years, but they do make some adjustments or allowances. If say you increase your down payment, or if your credit score is really high, or whatever the case may be, there are balances. So those are 3 indicators that will indicate that's a good time to buy.
Excellent. There you go. There's a few tips. All right. So what are some of the expenses that they need to prepare for when inside of the buying home process? If I can get that out.
Never. Yeah. And we say it all the time too. There's so many home buyers out there, and I know you guys are sitting on the sidelines waiting, but really get that information, get that knowledge, get started, because right now the market's down, but when the market's up again, you want to be ready to go. And to answer your question, those expenses, let's start with, you got your option period. So your option fee is one of them, your earner's money. So that's the basics there. Mm-hmm. And then from there, you'll have your inspection. And then from the mortgage side, we'll ask for appraisal fee. Appraisal fee runs between $500 to $600. You'll have perhaps a survey to pay for as well, depending if the seller has one or not to utilize. If they don't, that might be a negotiating factor there. Mm-hmm. What other expenses to think about? Well, I guess inspector.
You have your inspections, your appraisal. Yeah, exactly. If there's anything that you're looking at inside of, your closing cost. Your loan discounts. Yes. The things that you have. If you are going to have escrow.
Oh, escrow. Yeah, that's true too. And that's a whole different ballgame too, the escrow part of it, because you kind of need an escrow if you're going to put less than 20% down, so it's kind of no way around that in a way.
So what is escrow?
I think the way I define an escrow account is a third-party account that handles your mortgage statements or mortgage payments, your mortgage statements, handling your questions and inquiries. I'm sorry, that would be a mortgage servicer, but your escrow account is just basically handles your insurance and taxes when it's due to pay. So it's just a third-party bank account, probably set up by your mortgage servicer or title company, and basically that's where your tax and your insurance payments go. And then when it's due, take it out of your escrow account. And then I think your escrow account can be eliminated as soon as you've paid off 20% of your home, I believe.
Yes, there's keep that in mind when you are paying your home mortgage and looking at your 20%, because I like escrow accounts because you don't have to worry about writing. I mean, I don't want to write a check for my taxes in December. I'm thinking about Christmas. You know what I mean? So let the lender do that. Let the lender handle that. So what are your thoughts? Is it better to buy or to rent?
That's a very good question. It's an age-old question. People have been asking that question for decades, right? And we are no longer in the 1980s or 1990s. You know, I understand that back in the day, people thought about, having debt was a bad idea. I believe now we're in a capitalistic world, so it's about leveraging debt. And so at the end of the day, the answer to that question is what's best for you. What's your lifestyle like? Do you want flexibility? Do you want security? Do you want to be able to move and go somewhere and leave to a different country whenever you want to? Or do you want to stick around, plant roots, and build equity? There's flexibility in both. There's advantages in both. So you just got to decide what's best for you, best for your income, your budget, your lifestyle, your circumstances, and your end goal.
Mm-hmm. So. Very much so. Very true. Now, what are your thoughts on the interest rates right now? Do you believe, will interest rates go down?
Very good question. I know everybody's asking this question. Everyone is waiting for the good answers, right? And what it looks like so far is the Feds are still trying to control the inflation levels. And I don't know if interest rates are going to go down. I don't have a crystal ball. None of us do. So that's why I tell people do not wait for interest rates to go down. There's a good chance it might go up a little bit more. But either way, start planning for the worst in a sense. But, prepare for the best, and I guess. Is that the right way to say it?
Yeah, it really is because, we are pre-pandemic interest rates. So I always say, and I've said this so much, that we all got spoiled. We got a little spoiled during COVID.
Oh, wow, 3%,
right, that time period. And, interest rates, we were really hoping that interest rates were going to be, definitely below 6 by the end of the year. That's not happening, as we all know. They just went up recently.
Yeah, we were actually predicting 5% around May, June.
Yeah, exactly.
And that didn't happen.
No, not at all. So, so again, don't wait for the interest rates to go down to buy your home. Refinance at a later date. Now, what options does someone have if they want to buy in this market today?
Well, if you have to buy in this market, and that's understandable, and you're not the only one in that boat. I would say that one of the first options you consider is get with your realtor to have them negotiate with the seller to do a temporary buy down. You can do a 3-2-1 buy down, or a 2-1 buy down, or just a 1-year buy down. And what does that mean? That means the seller is going to contribute to prepaying your interest rate, and they're going to buy down your interest rate for the first year by 3% or 2%, depending on what program is available to you. And hopefully that helps you with your monthly payments every month, right, in terms of budgeting. Your other option is discount points. Right, you can buy down those points yourself. That's also considered prepaid interest, and so you can, if you have it in the bank and the funds to buy down your interest rate, and you have no intentions of refinancing or moving in the next 3 to 5 years, then definitely highly consider doing discount points to reduce your interest rates, to lower your monthly payments. Another option, I feel like there was something I had in mind, but I don't remember what it was now. But there is a third option, I feel.
No worries. So we have So what if? So this is one of the things, is what if someone does not work or have a salary or an hourly job? They're a 1099 or a business owner. That is a whole nother ball game. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yes, don't feel like you're a contract worker or a bartender, working in a restaurant, or business owner, that you don't have options to buy a property. You do have products out there called their 1099 loan options or bank statement loan options. Of course, these loan products have higher down payment requirements. Your loan to value is not as high as with conventional residential loans. And then Oh my God, I just went blank again.
Yeah, no. I think there's a P&L. You have to have
yes,
P&L
bank
statements,
There's bank
right?
statements. They're going to require 24 hours, 24 months of bank statements. If you don't have bank statements, some lenders out there will require your profit and loan P&L statements. So there are a little more stringent requirements when it comes to 1099 loans and bank statement loans, but they're available for you, and they try to make it easy for you to get one of those once you're able to cover all that. Like your down payment, it's not going to be 3%. You're looking more like 15 to 25%. So keep that in mind, and you do have to maintain your credit score as well. So they will be looking at that too. So
that is very important because it makes a difference for your history, right? Your payment history. So what are some down payment assistance programs?
Oh, well, believe it or not, many lenders have down payment assistance programs. I'm just going to call it DPA here on out. So we have one, the federal government has one, but some of the lenders out there also have their own DPAs too. And what a DPA is it's a down payment assistance program for people within a certain income bracket. Your minimum credit score is normally going to be about 620 is what they'll accept. You do not have to be a first-time home buyer. That's a misconception too. That used to be a requirement. They've changed that now to allow it to everybody. So you don't have to be a first-time home buyer. And then another thing to mention is there are two types. There's deferred. There's a grant option where it's just basically given to you, and there's a deferred option, and you're given 3 to 7%. And the deferred option is basically it's forgivable after 3 years, 3 to 5 years, depending on the program. And so if you move before 3 to 5 years, you'll have to pay that down payment assistance back. But if you don't, then that's forgiven. Deferred, don't have to pay back. So it's great if you're within that bucket. Income, credit score, area sometimes too.
Right.
So reach out to your loan officer, find out which products are out there that fit your circumstances, and let's find out whether you can be approved for down payment assistance.
So we're almost at the end of the segment, so I don't want to lose sight of this. How education is so key for you and really helping people understand the process. So tell us, that for those that have not met you yet, talk a little bit about what that means for you in educating individuals.
Oh, well, I am a big fan of psychology, sociology. I observe people, and I'm also a subject myself. And I've realized that people need to understand the nuances, the small steps, not the big picture, the small picture, the steps that really intimidate people, like talking to a mortgage loan officer, reaching out to somebody, asking the right questions. And sometimes it just needs a little bit of foundation understanding, like terminology and knowing what products are out there. Because I know people are worried about being bamboozled or being swindled or be taken advantage of because they don't know what they're talking about. So I think it's crucial to understand the fundamentals and the basics, and I do teach them. I hold them. I guess I promote them on Eventbrite, and I try to do them through my email account. So reach out to me via email if you want to blast. But yes, I think it's very important to understand the basics of understanding the terminology and what's out there for mortgages so you're not being taken advantage of. And that's all I want, for you to be knowledgeable and then set off and be free.
Right. And you'll help them through the process and holding their hand.
Of course.
Right?
And there's tons of people like myself out there, but I would love to help you too. So yes, I'm one of your options, but don't be afraid to reach out to your options out there.
Exactly. And I know you'll agree with me, Ann. You really want to at least talk to 3 different lenders about when you're pricing your interest rates. And if it's too good to be true, it is too good to be true.
Oh, with that being said, make sure you're also comparing the cost, those fees. Don't just compare interest rates, compare the APR, compare the origination fee, whether there's discount points. And beyond that, make sure you're getting somebody who's giving you the customer service that you're wanting, who's guiding you and educating you and giving you, the right...
That's not pushing a piece of paper in front of you and telling you to sign.
Yes. Here's a loan estimate. Sign it. Got to go.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that.
I want to make sure that you know what you're signing, that you understand what's going on, and that if you have any questions, that you feel comfortable to ask me. And that's what makes a good mortgage loan officer.
Yeah, it does. It definitely does.
And communication.
Exactly. Communication is key. Now, Ann Tran, she's with Envoy Mortgage. Envoy Mortgage is right here in the Houston market, not too far from our studio, in fact. Another great thing about Envoy Mortgage is their underwriters are right here in Houston. In fact, I think the team is on the first floor and the underwriters are on the second floor. So that is, touch on that a little bit. Why is it so important to have someone local, your underwriters?
Oh my God, it's timing. Timing is of the essence in real estate, right? So time can cost you. So it's important to have underwriters and processors in your back pocket that you can reach out to at any time in the day. I mean, we can't reach them at midnight, but if it's an emergency, we will find channels to get there. But that's one of the great reasons to have somebody local to be able to reach out to them, have them touch base with the channels they need to get your loan closed to the final closing table.
Great. Well, Ann, thank you so much for being with us again today. We learned so much from you. I look forward to our next segment. So we go on to the after closing, or as you're getting to the closing. So thank you again for being here.
República H, con Sofía García.
Una república que necesita saber cuál es el camino correcto. En República H te diremos qué pasa en cada rincón del país. ¿Qué pasa en tu estado? ¿Qué hace tu gobernador, presidente municipal o alcalde en materia de seguridad, salud, desarrollo, economía o servicios básicos para atender a su población? Tenemos desplegados más de 70 corresponsales en todo el país y más allá de las fronteras. República H, de lunes a viernes a las 8 de la noche por Heraldo Televisión.
Palitos y Bolitas es la catedral de la explicación. Este programa es la única parada que necesitas para entender los porqués y cómo de todo lo que pasa en México y el mundo. Lunes a viernes, 7 p.m. por Heraldo Televisión.
Welcome back to everyone to Your Personal Real Estate. I'm Michelle Briggs, your host. And our next guest is Saji Salam. Now, Saji is a principal with Care Venture Capital. And today, Saji, can we talk about purchase agreement?
Yes, I can talk about the purchase agreement. So the typical purchase agreement in an apartment or commercial real estate is broadly the same, like you would do in a rental or a single family home, with some core elements. But then there's a lot more details when it comes to commercial real estate. So, for instance, you will have a purchase price in the purchase agreement. You will have earnest money deposit, though there will be some terms around the earnest money deposit. There are situations where there is hard money required. So if the hard money is required, then how much? When does that become hard? Those are some of the terms that would be included in the earnest money deposit language. And then the other major thing in the commercial real estate world, unlike single-family homes and other assets that you're typically used to, is the extent of documentation. So you would need, I'm just calling out a few here, you would need rent roll details, you might need a P&L for 2 to 3 years prior, you would need the insurance, you would need survey, taxes, escrows, title insurance. So all of these are included in the purchase agreement. It will also have some language on closing cost, and another big difference here is also the handling of the closing period. So because typical multifamily deals take anywhere from 3 to 4 months to close, there are things that can go wrong in that period. So the purchase agreement has language to cover some of those issues that can happen. And we cannot cover for all of the issues, but at least some of the bad ones can be covered here. So you would have some terms around fire or flood, and what happens if there's a fire or flood during this period. So at what point do you then walk away from that agreement because of a fire or flood, and depending on how bad it was. And so there will be some terms that we put in the purchase agreement. So let's say, hey, if the damage is less than $100,000, we will still honor the purchase agreement. but if it's more than that, we may not. And that number could vary depending on the size of the asset and what you put down there. So that's one of the items that you would see in the purchase agreement of multifamily. There will be other operational items like what about occupancy? So if the occupancy drops like crazy, what happens? What do you do with the kind of tenants that the previous owner is bringing into the property during this period? Do you want to be involved as a buyer in terms of the tenants who are coming in? So those are other terms that get mentioned there. What about the vacancy rates? If you had 50 units when you signed the purchase agreement, and then when you acquire the property and at closing you have 100 vacant units. So how do you deal with that? So those are items that are covered in the purchase agreement as well. And then the one other item is prorations. So how do you split the rent if the closing is in the middle of the month or like the 27th of a month? So how do you deal with the expenses and income prorations and tax prorations and everything? So there'll be some general terms around that as well. So these are broadly, high-level purchase agreement terms, and it can get more nuanced than this. You can make it much more detailed and complicated, but this is just a high level of what goes into the purchase agreement.
And Sajid, could we talk more about the due diligence of a multifamily asset?
Sure, Michelle. We can talk about the due diligence of a multifamily asset. So we could break it down into two types of due diligence at a high level. We talked about the financial due diligence early on in the segment, where we look at the financials and see how the property is operating. But then there's the other physical due diligence that is important too, where you would start with the physical characteristics of the apartment. You look at the roofs, the mechanicals, the pools, how the grounds are maintained, if there are cracks and potholes in the parking lots. So those are some of the physical aspects of the asset that you would want to understand. So that is one part of it. And then you would look at the interiors. So you would walk every single unit. So when we acquired a 446 unit asset right here in Houston, I walked every single unit along with the team. And the team for due diligence is typically the property management company who's going to be taking on the property, and there will be a representative from the seller's property management company too to help us in the process. And then you will have a construction / renovation team which would be looking at each unit and saying that, hey, this property, this unit is in great shape, this unit needs this thing to be done or not. So for each of the units, then the renovation needed for that unit is noted down. And nowadays it's gotten a lot better with softwares available, so you're able to take pictures of the units and then you can put in notes and upload, and then you are able to pull a report of the state of the unit. And one other thing that probably didn't get mentioned in the conversation is the audits, the lease audits. So from an operational standpoint, you want to look at the leases that are there. Are they done in the right manner? Are they legally kosher? What kind of underwriting of the tenants are done? Basically, have you done the background checks? Have you looked at their finances before moving them in? So those are some of the other items that you do as part of the due diligence. So once all these are done, and then you are good to go, then you tell the seller that we can move forward and close the transaction. And during this period, then we'll be working with the lender and the investors to bring in the funds to close the transaction.
And what are key elements of operation management in apartments?
Once the transaction is closed, then it is over to the new ownership team and the property management team. So the property management team will take custody of the property right at closing, and there are several key elements of operations management that then come into play. So this, in my mind, the operations management is a real critical piece of this business. Operations management can make or break a property, and this is very much dependent on the asset management team. We, as the asset management team, have to make sure that the property management company is doing all this and it meets our expectations. So, Michelle, to your question about operations management, the key pieces are one, marketing and leasing. So when we talk about marketing, now a lot of the marketing is digital, so there is a fair amount of digital marketing that is put in place to attract new tenants to the property. And as part of the marketing, and you get new applicants coming in, then you're looking at the application, you're underwriting the tenant. So basically a background check is done, and typically, at least in our assets, if the tenant does not pass a criminal background check, we eliminate the applicant right away. So the application doesn't go past the background check in many cases. Once the criminal background test is a pass, then and only then do we look at the financials of the applicant. Does the applicant have a job? What kind of income is there? Is there enough income to meet the rent after other expenses? So basically, we're doing a little bit of financial due diligence on the tenant or the applicant here. So once the applicant qualifies, then the formal process of signing the lease is started, and the property management company gets the unit ready for the tenant to move in. So these are the activities that go into the front end of this process, basically from getting an applicant in all the way through the financial due diligence on the tenant, and then generating the lease, and then finally moving the tenant into the unit. So that's the first part of the operations management piece. The second piece is now that you have the tenant, you need to make sure that you're collecting the rents. You're making sure that the delinquency is managed. Is the tenant paying on time? Is there any overdue payments? And how do you follow up with the tenant to make sure that your delinquency is low? And then there are other situations where the delinquency keeps building, and at some point, after conversations with the tenant, it might result in a situation where the tenant has to be legally evicted for non-payment of rent. There are other reasons also where a tenant can get evicted, mostly around criminal activities in the property, etc. So those also can lead to evictions. And so collections, delinquency, and evictions is the other bucket of work for the property management company. Then you move on to the maintenance. So you need to start with the day-to-day maintenance of the property. So you have pools to manage. In one of our assets, we have 3 pools to manage. So it's a lot of upkeep and making sure that the pools look blue and clean and no leaves or other debris on the pool. So from the day-to-day management of the pools to making sure that the grounds are clean, so that is kind of the day-to-day management of the property. You may have issues like plumbing leak here, or a complaint about roaches or rats. These are things that you deal with on a day-to-day. So the property management company has to be on top of these things. Apart from these day-to-day issues, you could have maintenance that you need to do on a regular basis, so that the property is functioning very well. So routine checks on electricals, checks on again the pool also. I mean, it's not just day to day. It also has to be. There are some updates that have to be done on a periodic basis. So those are some of the items that need regular updates. The other critical element here are work orders, and work orders are basically tenant complaints. A tenant calls in to say that, hey, the bathroom is not flushing, or the roof is leaking, and so these are some of the items that show up as work orders, and they could even be simple work orders like change a bulb. With all the software that we have in place now, there's a method of the madness. You're able to capture all this on the software and able to track it to closure. But again, that is a very, very important part of operations management. If the tenant is not happy and you're not taking care of the tenant, and those work orders start to pile up, then you may lose that tenant. The tenant may not renew. So we touched upon most of those maintenance and work order issues here. Moving on to security. Security is becoming more and more important these days with whatever is going on in the economy and other external issues that are going on. It also depends on, to some extent, on the class of properties too, where in some assets there could be some activities which are not the best of activities that you would expect in an apartment, and so it could be sometimes due to the demographics and some of the tenants who are living there, who are creating issues there. But there could be issues even in high-end apartments, where one of my first investments was in a Class A apartment, and then 2 tenants had a fight, and they just pulled the gun on the other guy. So so these things can happen anywhere or in any class of apartments, but it's good to have a security plan, and security plan is important in any apartment of any class. The other major piece of this is the back office of the operation, so accounting and finance. So you need to be generating the profit and loss statements. You need to be making sure the invoices are getting paid. So this is a very, very critical function. And most of this gets done in the back end on the software systems, but there are people who make it happen. There are finance and accounting team members who input all the invoices so that we know what is being spent, and then depending on the software, you're able to integrate the payments that are made, and the online payments that are made, and then it shows up on the system. or you need to have other mechanisms to make sure that the income is captured as well. You also need to generate several reports for the lender, for the investors. So that is a very, very critical aspect of operations. And then the last piece that I can think of is renovations and turns. So depending on how we look at this, right? If you have a separate renovation budget, which is basically to come in, renovate the unit, and spend $5,000 to $8,000 on a unit, you might have a dedicated renovation team / CapEx team. And in that case, this doesn't really fall under the ambit of operations management. But in scenarios where you do some light renovations, you are doing some turns, then this falls under the ambit of the operations management. So when I say turns, it's basically a tenant has been living in a unit for some time. Now the tenant is moving on, and we are bringing in a new tenant. So we need to get the room done up. You may have to do some painting, change carpets. Maybe you need to get new appliances. So those kind of things are what are covered under turns, and that is primarily done by the property management team for the most part. So these are the major operations management pieces that go on in an apartment.
Thank you so much for your insight, Saji. And as always, how can people get in contact with Care Ventures Capital?
Oh, thank you for listening in. We can be reached at www.careventurescapital.com. You would find us on Facebook and LinkedIn for the most part. And you can reach me at Saji, S-A-J-I, at careventurescapital.com.
And we'll be right back after this commercial break.
The best bilingual news, business talk, and technology content 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You are watching Now Media Television, the first bilingual media network in the United States.
El tema está en los países.
Liderazgo y experiencia.
Nuestro país debe meterse en las grandes discusiones y en los grandes debates.
Son parte de una carrera exitosa.
Juegan dos estados.
Él es referente en el periodismo.
No definen el 2024.
Javier Solórzano te espera cada noche para llevarte las noticias, el análisis y las entrevistas más importantes de lo que sucede día a día en el país.
Este es el referente de la noche.
Now, thank you to all of our guests today and to you, our viewers. This show airs Thursdays at 5 p.m., and we want to be your resource for all things real estate. Should you be looking to sell your house or buy a new home, I invite you to allow me to be of service to you and your family. I'm your host, Michelle Briggs, and this is Your Personal Real Estate.
The best bilingual news, business talk, and technology content 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You are watching Now Media Television, the first bilingual media network in the United States.
El tema está en los países.
Liderazgo y experiencia.
Nuestro país debe meterse en las grandes discusiones y en los grandes debates.
Son parte de una carrera exitosa.
Juegan dos estados.
Él es referente en el periodismo.
No definen el 2024.
Javier Solórzano te espera cada noche para llevarte las noticias, el análisis y las entrevistas más importantes de lo que sucede día a día en el país.
Este es el referente de la noche.
República H, con Sofía García.
Una República que necesitas saber cuál es el camino correcto. En República H te diremos qué pasa en cada rincón del país. ¿Qué pasa en tu estado? ¿Qué hace tu gobernador, presidente municipal o alcalde en materia de seguridad, salud, desarrollo, economía o servicios básicos para atender a su población? Tenemos desplegados más de 70 corresponsales en todo el país y más allá de las fronteras. República H, de lunes a viernes a las 8 de la noche por Heraldo Televisión.
Palitos y Bolitas es la catedral de la explicación. Este programa es la única parada que necesitas para entender los porqués y cómo de todo lo que pasa en México y el mundo. Lunes a viernes, 7 p.m. por Heraldo Televisión.
The best bilingual news, business talk, and technology content 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Broadcasting live from Houston, from the space city to the world. You are watching Now Media Television.